Hey, it's Kathy with Rock Your Retirement. And as promised, today's Friday, and so you'll be getting to listen to Henry Shapiro's Retired Excited. I know you're just going to love this as much as I do. And don't forget, you can still listen to Rock Your Retirement, where I'm the host, and those shows are released on Mondays.
Welcome to the Retired Excited podcast. Retired Excited, the show where we give retired and want to be retired folk a look at how great retired life can be. Here we talk to men and women who are happily retired and loving their life. We explore the techniques, activities, beliefs, and excitement of these happy retirees and examine how every Tom, Dick, and Mary can benefit from their experience. Together, we will delve into what retired happiness really looks like and how anyone can achieve it.
Here is your host, Henry Shapiro.
Hey folks, Henry here at Retired Excited, the show providing inspiration for people who are nearly retired, newly retired, or say they're never going to retire. If you're nearing retirement and fearful of what lies ahead, you don't need to be. If you're already retired and wondering how to fill your days, then this show is exactly for you. Here we talk to retired people doing things that make them happy. Things from stamp collecting to cruising, from dancing to touring the world on a motorbike. There's an exciting stage of life to be enjoyed after full-time work, and it's got nothing to do with your financial situation or social position. We talk to everyday retired people who are living the life they want, and we talk to a few professionals to get expert advice. And I chip in with some of my own experiences. Hi there everybody, here we are again at Retired Excited with episode 11. Some of you may have watched a program on television called Who Do You Think You Are? And what they do is they get celebrities to have a look at their family history and their genealogy, go back and look at their ancestors. And that's more or less what we're going to do today. I'm talking to a lady called Alison Smith. Now, Alison, when she was a younger lady, she had a bit of a look at her family history, looked at her relatives, and then she dropped it. It didn't really grab her at that time, but later on, an event occurred which caused her to think, oh, I really should have a look at this. And she started delving into her background of her family, and started to consume her. And she's not a guru in this, just a lady who was trying to find out some stuff for herself, and she's done really, really well, or I think she's done really well at it. And what we're going to do is find out the reason why she took up this quest, why she started looking, and a couple of the really surprises that she discovered along the way, and how she went about the business of discovering who her ancestors were. And also, towards the end, I'm going to ask her what resources she uses. And for those of you who are interested in having a look at your family history, at your ancestors, these resources are really important because they can save you lots and lots of time. I'm not quite sure why this always happens to me, but while we're talking, Alison's husband is clattering around the place, and off air I say to him, I'm going to kill him, and then I'm going to jump up and down on him, and then I'm going to kill him again. But didn't seem to help much. Anyhow, there's a few bumps and whatnot in this episode, but can't be helped. As always, I start out by asking her where we are, where we're doing this interview from.
We're in Melbourne, in inner Melbourne, at my house.
Right.
We're having a chat.
Alison, I want to talk to you today about lots of things, but mostly about genealogy. Mm-hmm. But before we do that, tell me, how did you come to genealogy? What's the background?
Well, I've always been interested in history, and my grandfather died very young, and so we never knew anything about his family. Mm-hmm. So I thought I'd like to find out a little bit about his family on my father's side.
Is your background in history, or because I know you're a teacher?
Yes.
Was that something in your training?
A little bit, yeah.
Yes.
I've always enjoyed history. Yeah,
Okay.
I've always had an interest.
Terrific. So, sorry, I butted in on your story about your grandfather. Keep going.
Yeah, yes. And my grandfather died young, and my father wasn't interested in the past, so he never talked about the extended family. So I was really interested to find out about them. And in the 1970s, I went and interviewed a couple of my father's cousins, who at that stage would have been in their early 70s. And they
This is
told
in
me,
1970, they were in the 70s. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And they told me a little bit about the past and about our great-grandfather.
What were you doing at that time?
I had young children. I wasn't working.
So, all right, then that sparked your interest.
Yes, that's really sparked my interest.
Okay,
And I put that aside, forgot about it
yes.
for a long time. But luckily, I kept...
You were still a young person at this stage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was.
So that's in the memory bank.
In my 30s.
Right.
Yeah, early 30s, late 20s. And so I wrote a bit of that down, made some notes, and I put them away, and I forgot all about them.
Yeah.
And then when my mother passed away, we were going through a lot of things, and I found the notes. This was 3 years ago now, and so I've taken it up from there, and I'm following that interest.
Following it up from there. Yeah. So now, I know you're not really retired. You've just wound down. And that's the perfect way, really. It's not such a shock to the system or to the bank balance when you...
No, that's right. That's right. Yes,
ease
I am
off a
just
bit.
winding down.
And your husband, Ken, is coming towards the end of his working life as well.
He is.
And he's got another project going on. What's he doing?
He has. He's building a house.
Building a house? He's a builder by trade, isn't
Yes.
he?
Yeah, he is a builder by trade.
That'll keep him out of your
That'll
hair for a
keep him
while.
out of my hair. That'll keep him busy. It's very good.
Excellent.
Won't have him hanging around the house.
So you've been working, you've wound down your work a little bit, so you're just working a few days a week or whatever at the moment.
Yes.
What did you think you were going to be doing after full-time work?
Well, I hadn't really thought about it because I've always been a busy person. I've always been very busy, and I've got grandchildren, and no doubt I thought that I'd have something to do with them.
Yes.
And yeah, I really hadn't thought that much about retirement.
And let's call you semi-retired at the moment, because
Yes,
you're working a couple of
semi-retired.
days. Is it turning out to your satisfaction? Is it turning out
Yes,
how
it's
you
good.
like? Yes.
It is good. Yeah, being semi-retired is good because you've got enough work to be stimulating, and you've got a little bit of time to follow your own
do what
interests.
you want to do.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, you use the word stimulating, or stimulating.
Yep.
Is that an important thing, do you think, as you get older?
Oh, definitely. Yes, yes, I think so.
What is it about that?
Well, it keeps you up with latest trends, and in my work I'm a teacher, so it keeps me up to date with educational philosophy and things that are happening. I meet a lot of young people, a lot of young families, a lot of work with young teachers, so I'm open to all of those sorts of ideas.
Fantastic.
And
yes.
I'm about 5 years ago I went back to university.
Oh, really?
And did a bit more study.
Yes, what did you study?
Psychology.
Right.
So I didn't...
I better behave.
So that was interesting too.
Okay. And so why did you do that? Why did you study?
Yeah, I enjoy studying, and I was interested in psychology. It was sort of a bit of a natural progression from teaching.
Yes, I guess that's right.
Yeah. And so I thought, that'd be interesting to follow that up. But I didn't actually graduate with a degree. I did a number of subjects.
Right. So in your position, a degree wasn't going to help you anyhow, was it?
No,
So,
that's right. It was,
and is that something, I'll just follow this up for a little bit. Is that something you would recommend to people?
Yeah, to go back to university.
Yeah, or further,
Yes.
Could be
Further
U3A
study.
or whatever.
Yes, I would definitely recommend that. It's you come at learning from a different perspective when you're older. You go into things...
Expand, what do you mean, what perspective?
You go into things, I think, in a lot more depth. And because you're older, you have more of an understanding. Well, I found that with psychology anyway.
Yes.
You can look at things critically, whereas maybe when you're younger, you just accept things.
Yes.
But, yeah, it's easier to look at things.
I have to admit, when I was I went to high school and then I went to RMIT, which is now a university. It was a tech school in those days.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get through it, you know.
Yes.
Whereas I know now I'd be more involved in it.
Yes, that's right. And that's what young people do. They just want to party and get through it, don't they?
I spent a lot of time down in the local pool hall, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I probably graduated at pool rather than what I did.
Yes.
So you've done that, and now we'll just go back again. You've expanded your brain by
I hope so.
yes, and expanded your interest, and you've now wound down to 1 or 2 days a week, whatever, and you found something that really excites you now to be doing in your spare time, or your
Yes, it's a really good hobby.
Yes.
And it's good for a retired person. You can spend as much time, or semi-retired like me,
Yes.
as much time or as little time as you like.
Yeah.
And you can do it, you can decide to just maybe follow your grandfather and write about his life.
Yes.
Or you might want to go way back, you know, as far as you can in the family.
So what you're saying is that there's different aspects to it. You can
yes.
try and get a broad range of everybody you can really find.
Yes.
Or you can just do your mother, or just do a great-grandfather or something like that. For people you know who are following this, what sort of endeavours have they? What sort of, I'm not saying this very well, what are they aiming at? What's the purpose of what they're doing?
Well, I think it depends. It depends on how you want it to be.
Yeah.
So if you want to, for example, I know someone who's written a book, and they just wrote that about a grandfather,
Right.
who they found it was very interesting, and they'd found a lot of information about him. And for other people, you might want to be looking way back. You might want to see how far back you can go. You might have had a family history that you're related to King John or somebody like that.
Well, that brings me to another point. I know sort of Americans, they all want to be related to people who came over on the Mayflower, and then people here in Australia perhaps looking to see whether they had a convict or a bushranger in their past. Is that a big deal?
Well, it's interesting if you find a convict.
Do you know anyone like that? Or any stories of those sort of...
Yes, I did find... Well, my mother had heard that her grandfather was a convict, but she hadn't been able to prove it. But since then, we've written away, and there's a lot of convict resources. There's lists of the convicts that came out, lists of the ships that came out.
You should explain for people who are not in Australia or don't know Australian history. Well, perhaps I'll just say that Australia was founded by, let's say, if you take the British version of this or the white version of it, Captain Cook.
Yes.
He established a settlement here, and then it became a penal colony. So the first thousands of people who came to Australia were convicts.
Convicts, yes.
Which in years gone by, it was quite a negative, let's say. Whereas now people think, oh, perhaps
Perhaps I've got a convict.
So I just butted in on you. So you thought that that one of your people was related to a convict.
Yes. And we found that it's fascinating what you can find on the internet, because we found that we had a relation, but he'd changed his name. He was convicted in England, in Kent.
Right.
And
what had he done? Do you know what he did?
yes, he'd stolen horses.
Okay.
Which was
Or related to
very
a horse thief.
bad.
Yes,
Yeah. And there's even a record of his trial online. So
Amazing.
yeah, it's amazing. And petitions for his speaking on behalf of him by other people.
Yes.
So that's all online in England.
Right. Okay.
I mean, it's all there. It's all there. It's all. Yeah.
You found this. You've
So we've found this
documentation.
and
You've got.
Yes, we've
Yeah.
documented that. And my cousin has gone over and she went over to England and she actually looked at the transcripts and so
It's interesting, isn't it?
yes. So he was a convict, and he came out and he married a girl who she'd been employed in. She was from Ireland and she was employed to come to Australia to work for somebody in Australia.
Like a nanny or a house.
Yeah, a house
person. Yeah.
So apparently they'd get people who were unemployed, I imagine, or looking for work in Ireland, and they'd fill a ship. So they'd have a whole ship full.
Right.
And they'd bring them out and they'd be consigned. That's the word.
Right.
Consigned to people.
The other thing was that in the early days, there was lots more men than women out here, wasn't
Yes,
there?
that's
so
right.
I suppose
That's right.
it was a good thing to get some women out here.
So he married this girl from Ireland, but sadly he drowned. He was a ship's carpenter. He drowned at sea. He couldn't swim, and of course, because I guess they couldn't.
Swimming is natural here in Australia, but in Europe it isn't.
No. Yeah, 5 of them drowned.
The other thing is that people look for is what they used to say. They had relatives who were born out of wedlock.
Yes, well, there's a lot of them. Yes, I think a lot of people find cousins that they didn't know existed.
Yes. Well, it seems strange now. The society has changed so much.
Yes.
Even when I was young, I'm not that old.
No, you're not.
It was if you lived together, it was living in sin.
Yes, that's
whereas
right.
now, if you don't live together before you get married, it's unusual these days not to live together, isn't it?
I think too, there was shame attached to having a baby out of wedlock. Whereas now,
even the word wedlock is a
very loaded word, isn't it?
I better get back to it. We were talking about stories that people find, whether they're convicts or bushrangers or whatever. You found someone in your past who was a convict and he's come out here.
Yes.
Let's get back to the actual hobby or enterprise itself. It seems to me that it is, seductive. That once you start, you get drawn into it.
You do get drawn into it, yes. And the internet now, when I first started looking up people, you had to go in to the Genealogical Society in the city. And the Genealogical Societies are a fantastic resource.
Right.
But now with the internet, it's so much easier. There's so much online.
Tell the listeners about that. When you say easy, what?
Well, there's a lot of newspapers online, so you can look. In Australia, we have a site called Trove, and all of the newspapers are gradually being put online. So you can type in an ancestor's name, for example, and a range, say 1900 to 1920, and every article with their name in it will come up.
If they've been a public figure, or
if they've been in the newspaper at any time, even a birth
notice or something,
birth or death,
yes,
obituary.
Okay. And you can filter it by a time range, so 1910 to 1920 blogs,
Yes.
died or something, and
Yes.
and it may come up.
And another thing, we found a relation we didn't know about, and there was a description of his wedding
Right.
in the 1920s online in Trove.
And you
So
didn't
that
know
was
you didn't know
interesting.
that until that time. You didn't know he was a relative.
No.
So how did you track down that this person that you're reading on the screen was related to you?
Well, yeah, there was a bit of toing and froing because we had to prove that he was the person, that he was a brother of my great-grandmother.
Right.
So we had to go back and look on Ancestry.com, and we found out that she did have a brother, but he was born in Melbourne. But this event took place in Perth. Right. So then we had to try and prove that this person who was born in Melbourne had gone to Perth. And we found some documentation that showed that
Gracious me.
his son had gone to Perth. The son had gone to Perth to meet his father, who had been living in Perth since whatever time.
Yes.
So we were able to put those two things together.
That's astounding.
It is, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's sort of almost like detective work.
Yes, yeah, I can see how you get sucked into it and
Yeah.
follow little trails here and there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, there's lots of little trails. And as I said, you can go into it. You can do as much or as little as you like.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Ancestry.com,
Yes.
and so let's talk about resources for a second of how you find things. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
The first resource that you should never discount are family stories, because even though a family story mightn't be exactly true, there'll be a grain of truth there somewhere.
Yes.
So you can if you talk to elderly relatives, the stories might have changed a little.
It's been cleaned up, yes. Yes.
But that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
For names, dates.
So family relatives is one resource?
Yes, relatives. As I mentioned, Trove.
Yes.
And
so Trove is newspapers?
Yes.
Yes,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Newspapers. You might have old family photographs.
Yes.
Go through them and see who you can put a name to. They might be... But the thing I found is people write great-grandma 1923. So,
without their name.
Without their name. So who's great-grandma?
What about, do libraries carry all this stuff?
Yes, local libraries are great.
Yeah.
They have some really good resources. Yeah.
I'm just going to jump away for a second. I was involved in a small town in the Western District. I lived there for a while. And the locals there started what they called the history rooms. It's in a soldier settlement area, but there were still some elderly people. They're sort of in their late 80s and 90s, some of them. And they would come into the history rooms with stories. Now, the folks who were operating the history, it was a voluntary thing, or it is a voluntary thing. The history rooms, they didn't want artefacts. People wanted to bring them old scythes and tractors and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't want that because it's just a building. But they would take documentation. And people were bringing in, well, they actually brought in lots of war medals, which they did take. And one of the purposes of doing that was to keep them safe. They've got a fireproof cabinets and all that sort of stuff. So they're not lost for future generations. And that's a really good thing. And there must, excuse me, there must be more places like that. I suppose if you search somehow, you'd find local resources like that.
I've been down to the local historical society down here.
Yes, yeah.
And they have old newspapers.
So historical societies. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
They're a really good resource.
What about books? So they're not so much books to look up your relatives, but books that teach you how to do this?
Yes, I'm sure there are. I probably haven't got to that stage yet because by the time when I'm actually compiling a tree,
Yes.
I'll need a bit of help in how to do that because now I've got such an extensive tree, I might have to break it up even into different families, into my mother's side and my father's side.
Yes.
Because I've found so many relations.
Yeah. So I'll just go back to resources. You've got the older relatives, you've got historical societies, you've got the library, you've got Trove, and I know a lot of people go and look in cemeteries.
Yes, cemeteries are great. I've been to cemeteries.
It's a bit out there.
No, it's
on
good
a
because you
dark
can.
night.
And the gravestones are a fantastic resource because if you take a photo, you look at them, take a photo, and it's got the days and the dates and things that you mightn't have known before.
They can lead you somewhere else, can't it?
Yeah, so that can lead you on. And getting back to books, it's good to have a history of the times.
Okay.
If they're in England in the 1850s, what's going on.
Gives you a context of what you can expect.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the context of why they might have come to Australia or why they might have gone to America, why they might have left Ireland.
Yes. Let's talk about Ancestry for a little bit. And listeners know I'm not an affiliate of Ancestry, but I know they're a very, very good site. And once you learn how to use them, it's easy enough to use, isn't it?
It's very easy.
You've been showing me.
Yes.
So tell me what you can do on Ancestry. What does it do?
You pay a yearly subscription to join, and you can build your family tree. You can put in photographs. You can add photographs, and it's like a community almost.
Right.
That if you type in, say, your grandfather's name and his date of birth, there might be somebody else who's been following your grandfather or looking for information
From
about
a different
your
aspect, a different
They could
country
be from
or
another country,
Yes,
it could be from anywhere.
Yes.
And that will automatically come up on your site. So Ancestry do all of the technical stuff. And they
Who runs it, or how do they get all this info?
The Church of Latter-day Saints.
Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. They've got a monster data bank, haven't they? I think.
Yes. This must be an offshoot
of that. I know. Some years ago, I tried to do this, and just drawing a picture or a diagram of your family is really complicated.
It is. It does get very complicated.
So they have a method of doing that, don't they?
Yes. They have like a prototype.
Yes. Yeah.
So you can just fill in the names.
Yeah. And it links them together, who's related to who.
Links together.
Who's married to who.
You start with your, whoever you want to put as your home person. I put my father. So you start with your father and then you work backwards.
Yeah.
And then...
can you work forwards to your children as well?
Yes, you can.
And grandchildren?
But you can start with your grandchildren and then work back from your grandchildren. It's better to start...
with your parents, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah. Ancestry, for privacy reasons, anybody who's still alive, they don't publish their details.
Okay, so you said that if you come across someone who's researching a person like your grandfather, who might still be alive, and someone else is researching him from a different direction, how do you contact them if they don't give you details? Is there some method of...
Yes, you can contact. There's a message board.
A message board, okay.
Yeah, you can write a letter.
Write it to Ancestry?
No. You have like a name, a code, or a name, or whatever you want to, however...
Yeah, there's a method, there's a way of doing
privacy you want.
Yeah.
And the thing too is about Ancestry, you can put on as much about yourself or as little about yourself as you like.
As you want, yes. Yeah, that's really good. So you said that you can be contacting other people. Is there a sort of community, I don't mean necessarily on Ancestry, but a community of people who are interested in all this, who you're in touch with?
I think you form your own community as you go along.
Yeah.
I've been writing to a man in Yorkshire whose wife is a relation of the distant relation way back of the convict.
Right.
So we connected. We recognised the name and
On Ancestry.
yeah.
So it works.
Yes, so it works.
It works.
Yeah.
So so now you're corresponding with this man and getting more details and.
Yes, well, we've had a little bit of a conversation, and we've both found out what we want to know, and I don't need to contact him anymore.
Yeah.
But someone else might come up. There's a lot of people. You would be amazed at the number of people following their family tree.
Get stuck. You're doing this, and you're involved. And you get stuck. Is there support, or is there help to move you forward? Are there forums you can go on and ask questions or anything like that?
I think so.
Right,
but I haven't.
You haven't struck that.
I haven't struck that. And the really interesting thing about it is that if you keep a record of everything you find out, it all links up. You think I'll never know who great grandfather was on that side, and then eventually someone will say something and you'll link up with something else and you'll find out what his name was.
You said something then that sparked in me, and that is if you keep a record. Now, so you need to be a particular sort of person, really.
Oh no, I'm not. I don't count
I'm a bit
myself
scatterbrained
as a very organised person, but I've got a folder.
Yeah.
And I just put all my I started off, I had one folder.
Yes.
But now I've got about 4 folders, one for each branch of the family, of notes and records that I've photocopied and sent away for, because you can send away for birth certificates and all sorts of things.
Now, I'm going to ask you 2 questions just to finalise, which are going to sound the same, but they are different. Would you recommend this to people? Would you recommend delving into your family past, or is that a good thing for people to do?
Oh, I think it's fascinating. Yes.
I mean, obviously, because you're doing it and loving it.
And if you're worried about finding skeletons in the closet, you probably have to be fairly tactful.
Yes.
And sure of your facts before you go.
You might be looking for the wealthy uncle, I suppose.
Well, that's right.
That's right.
That's right. And not everybody. I've seen people on Ancestry, and I've attempted to make contact with them, but not everybody replies.
No. Well, it's their choice. Yes.
Yeah, and that's their choice.
Yeah.
That's their choice.
And the other question, and I know you're not fully retired, but this is sort of aimed at retirees. What's your recommendation for people after or what would you say to people after they stop work?
Oh, keep busy.
Yes.
Keep busy. Find something. Find your passion, something that you're really interested in.
And why would you say that to them?
I mean, there's so much more to do once you retire, isn't there? That's only the beginning of your life. It's not the end.
Excellent. That's exactly what I want you to say. I did not prompt Alison, folks. That's exactly what I think. It's just another phase of your life.
Yes.
You know, you've got your days at school, and your days when you're married, and your days with your kids, and then your days when you retire.
Yes, and you don't want to let a minute go by without making the most of it.
Fantastic. Alison, thank you very much. That's a great place for us to wind up. Thank you for all your help with this.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you.
Well, there you go. It's a bit like a detective story, isn't it? Trying to find all the bits and pieces and put them together, work out who's related to who and what's related to what. And I can imagine, and certainly it seems for Alison, this becomes really addictive. It becomes seductive. If you've ever tried to do this and tried to draw your family tree, you're going to find, as I found when I had a look at this, it becomes really difficult, connecting all the people, where they all fit together. And that's where the website which she mentioned, Ancestry.com, and once again, I've got no connection to them, but that's where Ancestry.com is really useful, because they've got a set layout that you just start and then you fill it in. If we think about what Alison found out, well, she found a bit of a ruffian. back in her family, and amazingly, she was able to identify that person and find a whole lot of documentation about his life, which astounds me. But you never know what you can find on the web. If you think about how this used to happen in the past, well, you'd have to contact people, you'd write to them by snail mail, or you'd write away to local churches or whatever it might have been, and it would be really difficult and a very long exercise. But now with the internet, a lot of this stuff is on the net, stuff that you wouldn't even think about and stuff I wouldn't have thought about. And Alison gives us a whole bunch of ideas of where you can start the story. And she says, and this is a really good exercise, just start with the older folks in your family. If you're lucky enough to have grandparents or great-grandparents still with you, well, ask them for some of the family stories, and that's a great place to start. But then she mentions a number of websites, certainly genealogical societies and books, and even having a look at the gravestones in cemeteries. Now, I'm going to put all those things in the show notes on the website, retiredexcited.com, episode 11. You'll be able to find it all there. And I hope you found this interesting, because for those of you who like detective stories and those of you who would really like to do this, I think this gives you a terrific entry into that whole world. So once again, or even if you have tried this and you've had a look at a few of these things yourself, leave me a comment on the website, because I'd be interested to see how many of you have really tried to do this and have got stuck, or however it's happened for you. So leave me a comment, or as I always say, you can contact me directly at henry@retiredexcited.com. That's it for today. Hope you had a great day. Keep well, and I'll see you next time.
I like that.
I'm going to give that a go for sure.
That was terrific.
That was interesting. What a good idea.